five protected, but
Celtics got.
Right back to South Beach tonight for $20 beers. Stand by, gents.
Live from Columbia, this is Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network. Be a part of tonight's show. Call us at 800-956-7266 or email talkback@sportstalksc.com. Now, here are your hosts for Sports Talk, Phil Kornbluth, Kevin McCrary, and Tom Hayes.
Just love everything about South Carolina. I love the town, the people, the college itself, like the history, the football, because it's SEC, big-time football.
TGIF, welcome into Sports Talk here on South Carolina Radio Network. Kevin McCrary and the Professor Tom Hayes collaborating once again for you tonight. Phil Kornbluth enjoying his final breath of vacation. Graham Pope behind the glass pushing the buttons, and you, wherever you have us dialed in around the state, we're glad you're with us tonight on Sports Talk. Wrapping the week up strong, still just getting over the big news. The King returning to his throne in Cleveland. LeBron, I mean,
I thought they burned.
Can't get enough coverage on this. Yeah, that whole thing. That whole letter that I wrote. And that Dan Gil, he had 2 letters written already, for this decision, the indecision decision. So if LeBron went back to Miami, he probably it just was a matter of which one he was going to send today. But Cleveland, it is a good story to me. With no rooting interest with the Cavaliers or anything else, it's a good story going back home. That's the only place he could have really gone, or stay in Miami, be a Heat for the rest of your life, or go back home, try to build a winner there. You got your 2 rings, so it takes that pressure off of you. You were in a winning culture, so I don't have a huge problem with it. LeBron's not a villain anymore. He didn't like being the villain. He wasn't comfortable being the villain, so he can go back to his hometown with all his people, raise his family in Ohio.
If he's still winning, he's still the villain. I have this picture of LeBron being carried on in one of those Egyptian sedan chairs. The fans holding him up and bringing him back in. But Cleveland needs a dose of this. For the fans in Miami, for most of them, back to the beach. And so they won't, to them, they have something to turn to. They've got the beach. Cleveland, they got Lake Erie. But I think the winner in this whole situation is probably the guys whose name is off the front page, at least the front of the sports page, and that's Johnny Manziel. Oh, Johnny Manziel's in Vegas. Oh, well, I don't care. I mean, LeBron's back. So, I think the winner in this situation may be Manziel.
Connor Shaw's here. I think that's why all these athletes are gravitating now to Cleveland with former Gamecock quarterback.
Okay. And he tied the knot, yesterday?
He did. Tied the knot, the newly wed Connor Shaw. So that, of course, is the big story now from a local standpoint. You could see Ray Allen following LeBron and try to ride his coattails maybe to
Mike Miller.
Another title. Mike Miller's also apparently been reached out. Chris Bosh, just breaking as we went on the air, Chris Bosh apparently is going to re-up with the Miami Heat. Now, is this why Carmelo's been waiting to see what LeBron does? Is he going to call Pat Riley up and be like, what you got? You got max money for me down there? Make a new big 3? I don't know why you do that. If Carmelo needs to go back to New York, too. You're in a big market
up Chicago
with Phil Jackson. Well, unless he's going to get a signed trade.
Because they're in the division with Chicago and Cleveland.
Yeah.
So let's see. Shabazz Napier, quality guard. D-Wave, I'm going to have to limit the hell out of his minutes. I'm trying to think. Bosch is now getting scoring minutes. I don't know what other piece you had. They got a lot of room to fill. Oh, I forgot. Yeah, you guys and your love for McRoberts. I mean, I love their point guards. As bad as Mario was, and I mean, both of them were bad in their finals. But yeah, I can make an argument that's the X's and O's of having LeBron, carry the ball so much. But I like their guards. They've performed well in the past. Had a horrible finals though. I think he is. Depends on the love deal, but I don't know how they're going to shape that. Hey man, he's got Jeremy Lin with him. You guys remember the time ESPN contrived such a story that it had like the entire, we had to listen to that for like 2 weeks. Like, holy cow, who's this kid who's the next big star? Dude, this kid is god awful. He's just on some crazy run because he plays on a terrible team and got the green light. If any player in the NBA got the green light, they'd all have great games because they're that good. He's an LA kid, man. He's a producer on the side. I actually like Nick Young as like a 7 or something, but considering the rest of that roster, it's terrible. Oh crap, he's here. It does suck for Cubs sake that they're just whiffing. I mean, it's like the hourglass is damn near empty. Pal, LOL. Stand by.
All right, the big story in the NBA today. It's a shame that LeBron James had to have his news overshadowed by the Lakers acquiring Jeremy Lin from the Houston Rockets. That's the big story. Lin's sanity coming to L.A. The point guard and the missing piece for the Los Angeles Lakers, who had one of the worst records in the NBA last year. The only thing they needed was Jeremy Lin. You could watch that team last year and you'd say, man, they just need Jeremy Lin. That's all they need.
Well, they shoving it in the face of their, California rival, the Golden State Warriors, who had Jeremy Lin, never played him. So now they get to throw Jeremy Lin in their face.
Yeah, I kid.
Yeah, it's a salary dump. And when is the last time the Lakers taken a salary dump?
The last time the Lakers missed the playoffs 2 years in a row.
Yeah.
But, hey, whatever. They did re-sign Nick Young also to a 4-year, $21.5 million contract, too. 29-year-old Nick Young.
There's your backcourt, man.
Swaggy, P, and Jeremy Lin and Kobe, and an angry Kobe Bryant. That's one guy you would not want to be around today. When Kobe Bryant's like, who do we get? LeBron made it. No, okay, he's going to Cleveland. What about my Melo? No, okay. You're getting Jeremy Lin. Enjoy it, Kobe. Enjoy the golden years of your career playing with Jeremy Lin and Swaggy P in Los Angeles. 800-956-7266 is our phone number. Reach out, grab a line, 800-956-7266. And you can also hit us up via email, talkback@sportstalksc.com. Drop us an email. Tweet us at SportsTalkSC or just follow along. All of our news and info there on our Twitter feed at SportsTalkSC. Head over to Facebook.com/SportsTalk Radio Network and like us there to keep up with everything on social media. You will be connected 24/7. This is Friday. We won't be on the air Saturday and Sunday, obviously. Won't be back until Monday at 6:06, but you can stay connected with us even while we're gone. You can follow us everywhere. Follow us home. Follow us to the park, to the golf course, anywhere. Corn at the beach. You could be with Corn at the beach right now if you are on Twitter or Facebook. So you need to do both of those things. We have a great show for you, by the way, tonight. We're not just going to spend the entire show, thankfully, talking about LeBron James going to Cleveland. We will talk some basketball with our guy Lee Klein, who former Texas assistant. We'll get his take on the Wojcik situation, all the stuff happening in the NBA, and what he thinks is going to shake out when all the free agent dust settles, and we are going to see a flurry of activity here over the weekend. Also, we'll have our full Monty segment with Monty Dutton joining us in our next hour. Recruiting will happen as well. You heard in the open, we didn't really talk about the voice you heard in the open, but the voice you heard in the open was USC's latest commitment. That would be one, A.J. Turner from Centerville, Virginia, made it official on ESPNU last night, committing to the Gamecocks. Big year as a junior, 1,258 yards, 31 touchdowns, had Clemson, Virginia, Ohio State, and Michigan State on his list. So the Gamecocks pick up another running back. I guess you could call him safely your running back of the future. Right now, though, the future is now for the Gamecocks is they're getting down to the nitty-gritty in terms of crunch time. About a third of their incoming class is still trying to get itself qualified, and most notably some of those defensive backs, Lamons, and I guess the Al Harris kid is in. Al Harris Jr.
Yeah,
is in.
Al Harris
and
and
Wesley
and
Green.
Jones are in. Those two are in.
Yeah, but Wesley Green and Lamons are not in.
No.
And those are a couple that they want to get in. Obviously, that deep. Those are the big two. I mean, they need to get a couple more defensive backs in. Certainly, if you're Lorenzo Ward and you're Grady Brown, you want to have some depth
the corners,
back there.
yeah, because you got enough safeties. You're loaded with safeties. The deal is corner. The Mons, in my mind, because he's an athlete and been a jack of all trades in high school, I think he's probably a year away. He's not a guy. Wesley Green is a guy maybe with his size he could play his freshman year, a la Stephon Gilmore. So there's the more valuable of the two. If you had to pick one over the other, would probably Wesley Green.
So they're getting down to crunch time. Of course, they are hoping that they can get Dexter Wideman in as well, the Saluda standout, one-time Florida State commitment. And Steve Spurrier Jr. told Josh Kendall at the State paper earlier this week that they have a plan A and a plan B for all of them, but they're still looking at plan A right now and believe they have a shot. They know they're not going to get every one of them in, but they still think they'll be able to get a few of them in. Out of the six, maybe half. I think if they got half of them in and two of them were defensive backs and one of them was Dexter Wideman, they'd go with that.
They would go with that.
They'd go with that.
Because the line is crowded already.
That might be the best case scenario for them at this stage in the game, but we will see. But that is certainly something to keep an eye on for the Gamecocks going into their fall camp. Just a few weeks away from the start of fall camp. Remember, you've got this weekend to enjoy, and then it's going to be a lot of football leading you up into the start of the season. You're not going to have to twiddle your thumbs and just wait for me to read a watch list to you at night or go over the top college football entrances and the top 5 Heisman candidates. This is list season. We're going to go from list season to what I think Steve Spurrier appropriately calls talking season. A lot of talking will be taking place next week. SEC Media Days cranking up in Hoover. We will be there for its entirety. Steve Spurrier and his Gamecock contingent will be there on Tuesday. Also taking place on Tuesday, Dabo Sweeney's annual media golf outing at the Reserve at Lake Kiowee. I'll be rolling up there to catch up with Dabo, and we'll catch up with some of his assistants. The only chance we get to talk to any assistants ever. You get to talk to them at the preseason at his golf outing, and that's pretty much it. They keep guys on lockdown over there. Dabo Sweeney, even though he's not a Nick Saban clone, he kind of runs his assistants now like Nick Saban ran his assistants. Only the coordinators talk during the season in Dabo and selected players. You don't get to talk to the assistants except for this opportunity that we will have on Tuesday. So we'll have that busy week. And into next weekend, you'll have the ACC football kickoff in Greensboro cranking up, and that's Sunday and Monday, and we will also be there for that. We'll have all of the coaches, not just the local coaches, but Mark Richt, Nick Saban, you name it. Every ACC coach, every SEC coach will be up on our website, sportstalksc.com, and that's a website that if you aren't making that part of your daily routine when you do your sports web browsing, add it there now. Put it in your favorites. Make it your homepage because you don't want to miss out on all of the recruiting we throw up at sportstalksc.com, the stories, the links to stories we put up at sportstalksc.com. Also, you can find a link to all of our affiliates if you're driving around the state or want to find the closest affiliate to you. Our affiliate list is there. You can get a link to email us there, a link to listen to the show live, which works on your computer or your smartphone or tablet, or for the brave and not the faint of heart, you can go down to the bottom of the sportstalksc.com page and watch our live video stream. Or if you missed a show, you can go back and watch the show there after the fact. For 24 hours it's posted until we put our new live stream up. So there's a lot of stuff for you, long story short, there at sportstalksc.com. Busy show coming up. We will have a Braves report as they are playing right now. So we will get actually an in-progress Braves report from Mike Morgan.
Chicago lead in the 7th inning.
So we are keeping an eye there. Yeah, the Braves and Chi-Town opening the series with the Cubs. They managed to get back on track last night. They got out of New York without being swept to the Mets, and now they're trying to get off on the right foot against the hapless, just the absolutely embarrassingly bad Chicago Cubs.
Well, that was by choice.
I hope Matt, our news guys, Pope's also a Cubs fan.
Well, they traded away 2 of their best starters. I mean, they're
that's
we're called rebuilding pro. Thank you.
They've been in that 100-year rebuilding plan. It's important.
You don't say. Stand by.
Let's head out to the phones. We head down to Charleston, and I never attempted, and I'm not going to tonight.
Pontiff of the Port City, the queen of the cowboy crybabies. That's all I got.
Yeah, some guy named Jerome that we talk to from time to time in Charleston. What's up, Jerome?
I forgive you, Jerome.
I guess he doesn't want to mention that classic loss to the Chicago Bears, huh?
The
He
Chicago
never
Bears.
mentions that, right? Huh?
What loss was that?
You know, like, what was that? Did they make, like, the playoffs and they lost in the first round?
Who was this?
Or did they even make the playoffs? You remember when the Bears beat them? I guess it might have knocked them out of the playoffs.
Who'd the Bears beat? You've lost me already. Normally you don't lose me until about 90 seconds into a call. You just jumped right out of the gate and lost me instantaneously.
When you get that corrected, when you get that corrected, then you remember.
Okay,
but I just want to know, are white people still mad at LeBron? Because he's going back to Cleveland, and ESPN did a survey where it says there are a lot of white people who are still angry with him for leaving Cleveland and going to Miami. So I just want to know for my own, gratification. Are the white people happy now?
Was it just white people that were angry at him in Cleveland?
Well, the majority of people they did the survey were white, and they were angry.
There was one white guy that was especially angry at him, the owner of the Cleveland Cavaliers. He was one white guy that seemed pretty angry at him, but he's calling him King James again now. I think all is forgiven.
Yeah.
LeBron said, "Who am I to hold a grudge?"
Yeah, especially when you're paying you, huh?
Right, you're paying me. That whole thing was handled poorly the way LeBron did it. Everybody, we don't have to go back down memory lane. That was just a joke from the words that will be famous forever. I'm taking my talents to South Beach. It was a joke. Gilbert was a joke for putting up that stupid Comic Sans print letter about he's a fraud and he'll never win a championship, which for some reason
Kevin,
just now came down.
Hey, Kevin.
Yeah.
Kevin, all is right with the world. The white people love LeBron again.
No, all is not right with the world.
I'm a happy man now.
And all is not right with the world because the Lakers are still going to stink next year. So until David Stern gives us back Chris Paul, all is not right with the world. Okay, I want David Stern to veto. He needs to come back and take over the commissioner job again and veto the Jeremy Lin trade and actually do something positive for the Lakers.
I don't think that's going to happen anytime.
No.
See you. Nice talking to you.
Yeah, you too, Jerome. I have no idea what he was talking about with the Bears beating somebody in the first round. That's I have to, give that a think over the weekend.
That's over my head.
But the good news about the Lakers, at least they're better than the Celtics. As bad as it is bad, and they are epically bad. As bad as the Lakers have been since they moved from Minneapolis to Los Angeles, they're still better.
But many people say that the formula in the NBA is either to be very, very good or very bad, so you can get good quick. Mm-hmm. So now they're in the nadir right now. They'll have to work their way back up to the
stay bad. No, I think they're trying to stay bad another year, it looks like. That's the direction they're going in.
Let's go Cubbies. Brazilian soccer team, maybe? I don't know. Back on the crack. Odom's doing the stuff again. Let's get him out of here. Is he smoking cigarettes again? No, crack. Ah, we'll call up Cuban. He'll take care of that. That's some good crack, man. I'm in love with a Kardashian. Only rocks will make you do that. Whew. It ain't Kim either, bro. It's Chloe. Hey, did you ever see that video of him crushing the video camera, Lamar in the streets? Yeah, I crushed a selfie with him real fast, and he poses for it too. He's like, "Yeah, I'm going to jail." Selfie. When freebase and cocaine goes wrong. Starring Lamar Odom. At least we had Marino. Hey, hate on Jordan Hill. You actually like Jordan Hill. Yeah, Newberry, South Carolina. Yeah, his cousin Trevor Booker introduced him to basketball. This is according to Wikipedia. Yeah, he went to high school in Atlanta. Came back.
Eight hundred 956 is the phone number if you want to reach out and grab a line. Talk to us tonight. Feel free to do so. Your thoughts on the NBA free agency, which has been crazy. I mean, how long has LeBron known he was going to do this? By the way, Pro, your thoughts on him using the CNN SI platform this time to announce his piece? The SI, yeah, the SI platform, doing it that way, penning a first-hand essay himself. How did you like that?
Well, that his publicist did that, and so it's a thing where they just had the story done. I don't know how they got the exclusivity of it, because you could see,
kudos to them.
You could see the layout and everything had already been done. Somebody said, "LeBron, have you done it yet?" Okay, push the send button. Push the send button.
Well, apparently now Pope says clearly he wrote it himself. Are you questioning that LeBron
I was joking,
James?
yes.
You don't think he's capable of writing an essay?
No, I'm just telling you, his people. There's probably never been an athlete that has more handlers in his time than LeBron James. So it's pretty easy to understand. You screwed up last time. You went TV. This time, just be straight to the point.
He does have a lot of handlers.
Pin it up.
He does. All these guys.
They learn their lesson.
These days. Now, I did notice the person at SI who did it, who put it out there. It made it sound like it was almost he was transcribing it like he was talking to LeBron. And Cleveland said they never got any word from LeBron until this came out that they were going to get him. So
everything.
When did he tell Miami?
He talked personally to Miami, but he had his agent talk to Cleveland because I think he still wanted to think about. I really do think that it's partly because he thought about Gilbert's letter, but mostly I always think the family's involved. Is the wife involved? Yes. Are the children involved? Yes. And children, I know if I was LeBron's children's age and I'm looking at Miami Beach and then Dad, Cleveland, really? Miami, Cleveland, really? I mean, so they had to be sold on spending winters in Cleveland. I think the family had to be sold. He wanted to sell them, and sometimes when you go right to the soul of selling people where you grew up, they kind of understand after a while. So I think it's partly selling this family to move and go to Cleveland. And I think it's a great move. A lot of athletes leave. I remember when Wilt Chamberlain left and Philadelphia and went to Los Angeles, and Philadelphia was his home, but nobody talked about that years ago, and he never returned. To see this is really sort of great as far as the story is concerned. A guy goes back to his home area, Northeast Ohio, and he says it, I'm there to lead. When I left, and I thought it was interesting the way it was put. A lot of young guys have 4 years of college. My 4 years was spent in Miami. Now I'm coming back home to lead. It'll be interesting to see. But those 4 years, he got 2 rings on the way.
And Cleveland got a bunch of #1 draft picks.
Exactly.
And now they have more flexibility. And, the rumors starting with Kevin
Now
Love.
NBA can take that weight off the machine. It kind of leans toward
now
Cleveland.
they can go ahead and see what's going to happen. So entertaining. We'll see if any. Meanwhile, San Antonio's just sitting back, watching it all unfold.
In the weeds.
What's going to happen next now that everybody's returning places? I think with this trend, I'm waiting for Lane Kiffin to announce that he's headed back to Tennessee.
That ship is sailed.
Why not? Urban Meyer can roll back to Florida.
He'll return to Tennessee as an assistant at Alabama.
Right. Third weekend in October. He'll be back there. That'll be a game you
just don't get near
the
the Vol Navy while you're there. They may have you walk the plank.
Or every pro athlete, returning to his hometown to play for his hometown team. Maybe that should be the new trend that LeBron's starting now. Kobe leaves the Lakers to go back to Philadelphia. Peyton Manning goes to the Titans. Just keep doing it up.
No, actually, Peyton would be going.
Brian McCann goes back to the Braves.
Peyton would be going to the Saints, which is where he grew up.
Well, yeah, or you could say where you grew up,
yeah.
Saints, or where you went to college. I would accept either one as your hometown. You could have affiliations.
Knoxville and Nashville are now the same thing?
Well, I mean, it's Tennessee.
State. All right, we're going with
they
state
don't
too.
have a professional
so make sure I get the
team.
curriculum down.
They don't have a professional team in Knoxville, Pope, so I couldn't say, maybe the way Tennessee works, maybe they can get another year of eligibility out of him, even though he played all 4 years.
Well, that's what scared me about
Tim Tebow can go to Jacksonville finally.
That's what scared me about that Super Bowl. I mean, because Peyton Manning's dad played, 12 years, getting his head bashed in on poor Saints teams, even though his numbers were, tremendous when he played for the Saints. It's almost like subliminally you think Peyton Manning, my hometown, boy, they've been suffering so long. I got a man open, picked off, touchdown, Saints. It's almost like it was in his DNA to help his hometown team win the Super Bowl. Because when he threw that interception, I said, this is kind of ironic that this guy is from New Orleans and he throws that pick that seals the deal. But I say it's irony. Do I say it was fixed? No, I didn't say that. I said it just feels strange that happened to Peyton.
Breaking news. Breaking news. We need to have
this ought to be good.
We need to have the breaking news buzzer. Actually, this is not related to the Lakers. I do have some other Laker news coming up later, but this is actually legitimate breaking news in college football. Watch week. Watch week means more than just watch week for lists that come out, the Outland Watch list, the Maxwell. Watch week also is Crime Blotter
Oh
Watch
no.
Week, and we have some significant Crime
Georgia
Blotter
related?
in the SEC. It is Georgia related to an extent, but not Georgia Bulldog related. The arrest occurred in Georgia. Well, I take that back. Cited, not arrested. Auburn quarterback Nick Marshall cited, not arrested at 12:48 p.m. for marijuana possession less than an ounce, according to the Reynolds, Georgia police chief. Just cited, not arrested,
But he
for possession
he
of less
bought it
than an ounce
legally in Colorado
of marijuana.
or Washington State.
So, quasi crime blotter out of the SEC involving Auburn quarterback Nick Marshall, Heisman Trophy candidate, defending SEC champ, college football runner-up. Not the kind of thing you want right now. I think Steve Spurrier would like to see him suspended, the third week in October when South Carolina rolls.
Yeah, October 25th.
Yeah.
They open with Arkansas. That's the first thing you got to look for. See who game one is. So
Game one is against Arkansas. Yep. Now, Auburn has 100 ways to work around this. And given Auburn's track record and such things, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that Nick Marshall doesn't miss a snap.
Well, you do. Speaking of working around it, you got week 2 of San Jose State. So if you want to work around it just by a week, we can go that route too.
Or they could say he's not going to start against Arkansas and do the whole thing where he stays out the first play or the first series. They bring in the backup guy and,
he sobers up. Yeah.
Well, I guess my feeling is this season may be strange for Auburn. Couple of things. A lot of their weapons, especially the running backs and the offensive line, gone. Plus, it's interesting with the tremendous luck they had against Georgia and that run back against Alabama. You think that the cat used up at least 8 of his lives last year. They only got one card to play this time. It'll be interesting to see what happens because, as you said, Mississippi State should have gotten them that first or second week of the SEC season, and then they went on and reeled off all those wins.
You know who's in bigger trouble right now? Not Nick Marshall, but the Reynolds, Georgia police chief. He's probably got a bunch of Georgia fans calling him right now. Go, what do you know that's our big rival in the West. What are you thinking? You need to arrest that guy, turn off your dash cam video, take a note from the cop up in Lawrence County. Didn't you see the Sam Montgomery stop? It's not that hard. He's the one that's taking a bunch of heat right now.
He wasn't with the NFL.
If only,
That's why.
What would have happened if Marshall would have been caught with less than an ounce of weed near Tuscaloosa, anywhere near Tuscaloosa? He'd still be in jail.
A double Achilles rupture. This kid who's 6'2", 200 already. metrics that don't matter. These Bill James basketball people infuriate me. People read into that stuff.
One of those rare in-progress Braves reports, Atlanta and Chicago opening their series at Wrigley Field, and they are in the late stages of that one, 8th inning, I believe. 4-3 lead for Chicago in the bottom of the 8th. Mike Morgan joining us now, and at least Atlanta is going to Chi-Town with a little bit of positive energy after avoiding the sweep in New York last night.
Well, they are. Of course, that positive energy could be turned around real quickly if they don't go ahead and take care of business in this series. And I'm not just talking about today, but these are the final 3 games before the All-Star break. I think it's safe to say you'd love to have a better taste in your mouth than what you have after losing a series against the Mets. You don't want to return the favor and lose another one against the woeful Chicago Cubs at Wrigley. It's the first of 3 afternoon games, and the Braves find themselves down by a run 4-3 in the 8th inning right now, the bottom of the 8th, with the Cubs batting. So it's a good chance that we'll see if the Braves can mount a rally and hopefully get Craig Kimbrell involved in this game. But first things first, you got to go ahead and score some runs. They'll have Hayward, Johnson, and Listella due up the next frame.
You know, you get spoiled sometimes when you see Alderton Simmons in the field. Seen a couple of hiccups lately. Is he favoring an injury or something, or is just one of those things where you play long enough, you're going to boot the ball now and then?
You know, I think it's a classic case, not of an injury, but of a guy who was really struggling at the plate for a while, much like so many of the guys in this lineup right now have not been hitting the baseball particularly well. And I think sometimes when you struggle offensively, that bleeds over to the defensive side. I think that's the case with Andrelton Simmons. There's no reason to believe that this is going to be a trend of any kind or something that you'll ever have to worry about. I think if you polled 30 major league managers who the best defensive shortstop is right now, the majority of them would say Andrelton Simmons. He has the range, he has the arm, and normally he has the consistency. But I think, again, a lot of times when a guy is struggling at the plate, that bleeds over into other areas of the game, in this case, defensively.
Now, looking ahead, this Braves roster, Bethancourt being brought up because of Gaddis's injury, the young man does not seem to be overwhelmed. What is your take on his future with the Braves going forward?
Well, it's interesting because I think the world of Bethancourt, and I know the Braves do too. I was hearing about Christian Bethancourt 3 years ago, and finally getting to see him up close in spring training and with Gwinnett this year, and getting to know Christian a bit. There's nothing not to like. Tremendously defensively. The bat has finally come around. He's also a dream of a clubhouse guy, always smiling, always joking around, a great teammate. So he completely fits into the Braves' way. But what's interesting now, Evan Gaddis is actually in Rome because Gwinnett is on the road. They didn't see any point in flying him out to Chicago, where the facilities for guys nursing an injury are not really good. Much like everything else at Wrigley. And I love Wrigley, don't get me wrong, but it's antiquated in a number of ways. So they sent him to Rome to just kind of take some bats, take some swings, and work on the body a little bit. It looks like he's well on his way to coming back. And if that's the case, I wouldn't be surprised if they send Bethancourt back down to AAA just to continue to polish his game as opposed to just playing once every so often. There is no DH, so if you can't play him on a regular basis, it might be better to have him continue to improve as opposed to rotting on the bench.
And he's not going to actually play in the game in Rome, if I understand that correctly, correct?
That's correct. That's correct. All he's doing is taking some swings, and they've got tremendous facility. All these minor league ballparks that the Braves own, which is important to note, they're not independently owned. They're owned by the Atlanta Braves, and therefore the facilities are top-notch. So they feel more confident with him there than they do in a major league park in Chicago to get the rehab that he needs, to get the treatment that he needs after he takes those swings.
Mike, do you have any big announcements? Are you going back home? Like LeBron?
Yes, I'm taking my talents to Cleveland, and I'm going to try and become the voice of both the Cavaliers, the Browns, and the Indians at the same time. But we're in negotiations right now. It's going to be a tough struggle, but we're seeing what we can do.
And you can also be Johnny Manziel's bodyguard in your spare time.
I could. That's important to me. I think I might actually be a little bit bigger than Johnny, so that might work out okay.
Right, yeah. You could roll up the money for him so he doesn't have to get pictures taken of him doing it.
I have a great assortment of money clips in my dresser drawer, and since I don't have a ton of money, not as much as Manziel to put in those clips, I can at least supply them for him.
Very good. Mike, appreciate it. We'll talk to you next week.
All right.
Mike Morgan, and our Braves Report brought to you by Witsuber of Home Shop Realty. Give him a call at 803-518-3888.
CEO. Stand by.
The Braves, a big two-out hit for Bethancourt.
We were just talking about him.
Yes, he does. Don't send him down to the minors just yet. I mean, somebody just, who was that grooved that fastball right over the middle of the plate? I mean, that's not a hard one to do something with. But Betancourt did his job. Hayward scores, and the Braves have tied the game in the ninth. And we'll see what happens. Could be headed to extra. Well, we'll see. The Cubs obviously still get a bat in the bottom of the
you
inning.
see, the thing about it is some pitchers try to guess a young player's mentality. And sometimes they'll throw a show-me pitch thinking that he's going to take a pitch to see what's going on. He went right for that first pitch. He didn't stand there with his bat on his shoulders. That's why I say, especially in late innings, guys have to get aggressive at the plate. You see a good pitch, go for it. You don't be taking pitches in the top of the ninth inning. You can't afford to.
We've got an update on recruiting coming up in hour number 2, including some of the USC players that are still trying to get qualified from last year's class. So that's coming up in our next hour. Lee Klein, the CEO of the 5-Star Camps and the Slam Magazine basketball contributor, former Texas Longhorn and Rhode Island assistant. He'll be joining us in our next hour, as well as our full Monty report with Monty Dutton. He's going to tell us about that union that they have in NASCAR now. I thought he had a pretty brilliant tweet about that. We'll talk about that and everything else going on with the sport, including the robust discussion they're going to have on the schedule for 2015 that we got into a little bit with Chip Weil earlier this week, Darlington Raceway president, when he talked about the fact that the track Too Tough to Tame is going to be just fine on its race date. Thank you very much. As he put it, they're on their way up the charts on NASCAR, not down, and their metrics look very good there at Darlington. Over 11,000 people were at the track over the 4th of July holiday.
We got 11, yep.
Yeah, they only thought a couple thousand were going to show up for their Freedom Fest at Darlington Raceway.
Well, they showed a movie and had a family-oriented movie, and the fireworks.
The fireworks apparently were epic, and he said they had another couple thousand outside of the gates hanging out in the parking lot. So good job there, getting people to the track even when there isn't a race. So top of the hour coming up, busy second hour. We'll get into your emails, phone calls, and tweets if you want to connect with us as well. We'll see if we get a final on this Braves game. It's going to the bottom of the ninth now, 4-4. The Cubs can't get out of the ninth, and the Braves rally to tie this thing. So we'll keep our eye on that as well in our next hour.
All right, gentlemen, stand by.
Live from Columbia, this is Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network. Be a part of tonight's show. Call us at 800-956-7266 or email talkback@sportstalksc.com. Now, here are your hosts for Sports Talk, Phil Kornbluth, Kevin McCrary, and Tom Hayes.
We roll along, final hour of the week here on Sports Talk. K-Mac and the Professor with you. Kornblut enjoying his final hours of vacation before he returns next week. He'll be in Hoover drawing the assignment of SEC Media Days as we will get into our full-fledged football coverage beginning Monday with the SEC Media Days and Dabo Swinney's tournament on Tuesday, also the day that Steve Spurrier is talking to the media. I don't know if I wanted to put on my Oliver Stone conspiracy theory hat. You could wonder aloud, does Dabo Swinney make sure that he has his golf tournament on the day that Steve Spurrier is speaking at the SEC Media Day to make sure that he gets a little bit of the limelight too? This happened last year as well when Steve Spurrier and Jadeveon Clowney were speaking, among others, at SEC Media Day. But remember, Swinney was wrapping up his golf outing when somebody had to tap him on the shoulder and ask him what he thought about Jadeveon Clowney's comments that Tosh Boyd was afraid when they played. So maybe it'll be hard to top that moment and those moments of last year, but you never know what's going to happen with these things.
And let's face it, it could be anticlimactic this year. It's always a little something. Somebody will start something at the SEC Media Days, but it was almost like looking at the old-timey rock groups going through the crowd with Manziel and Jadeveon Clowney. I think this year that's going to be toned down a little bit, and that'll be sad to see. It got kind of strange the last couple of years with those two.
Yeah, it did. With Manziel and that circus, who is going to be the next big in college football now that Johnny Manziel and Jadeveon Clowney are gone, and we have a walk-off.
And the Cubbies win.
For the Chicago Cubs. The Braves lose 5-4. Bottom of the ninth, base hit with 2 outs, all with 2 outs. The Braves were out away.
A CNI hit between the second baseman and first base, stolen base, and then a CNI single through the shortstop. No ball actually was in the air. All were ground ball singles and a stolen base.
So the Braves have dropped 5 of 6 all of the sudden. That 9-game win streak looks like it's ancient history for Atlanta right now. Yeah, 2 base hits that both just slid under the gloves of the Braves middle infielders there with Simmons and
those are CNI hits.
Both of them. And so Listella, they both were plays that were nearly made. So the Cubs dogpiling almost. They all rushed out of there. The Cubs, they've won 2 straight. That doesn't happen a lot.
But
if you're the Cubs.
That is
the hapless Chicago Cubs have won 2 straight. Mark this on the calendar.
Recipe for beating the Braves. If you get to that middle relief, you got a chance. It's when you get to Kimbrel that you have no chance. So when that middle relief comes in, you got to take advantage.
Lee Klein joins us next.
Stand by, gents.
Not much better in terms of timing. Getting Lee Klein on to talk some basketball. Slam Magazine contributor, CEO of the Five-Star Camp, former college assistant with stops at places like Texas. Lee, hope you're doing well. Happy Friday to you.
Wow, it's great to be talking basketball in July. We don't get to do that too often, but this has been a rare exception with just an incredible free agency period. And of course, you know, the college season never stops. We're recruiting and just fun times for hoop fans right now.
Yeah, I mean, covering the NBA free agency period, it's been pretty incredible. Now, how shocked were you, if at all, that LeBron ended up going back home?
I really was surprised. There was whispers and talks, and I never really took them seriously. And then lo and behold, today the big announcement, and you know, good for him. Good for him to feel that he can. You know, that Cleveland's got such a special meaning to him, and he wants to do it, and he's, if you will, now have put himself in a position where he doesn't have to answer to anyone. He doesn't feel like his legacy. He's got 2 championship rings. He doesn't need to justify his legacy to anybody. So he's now at a place where he's at peace, where he can go back to Cleveland and see what he could do as a Cavalier.
Now, interestingly enough, if we could talk about basketball chemistry, because I think a lot of times I look at ball players who you look at as glue guys who don't have to have plays called for them. They get the garbage buckets. They play the tough defense against some of the tough wing players. In my mind, just on the face, I sort of get to disagree with some of the pundits out there that says, well, they have a good young piece in Kyrie Irving. They've got LeBron, and they talk about the compatibility. My point has been that my only problem, at least when you talk about those two, is both need the basketball. And the key point is, well, that's fine, Tom. But then I say, well, but Kyrie Irving is not what you call your consummate stand still on the wing shooter. He's a on the move type of guy. So how many moves do you think Cleveland has to make, and what move do you think they need to make, Kevin Love inserted, to really develop a team that can have a championship run in Cleveland right off the bat?
Well, I mean, Cleveland's got 6 top 5 picks on that roster in the, if you will, in the modern era. I mean, they got 4 guys that were drafted number 1. They got 2 guys that were top 3 picks when you include Thompson and you include, oh gosh, the names escape me in the last one. So Bennett's in 1. They got 4 ones, and they have two guys that are drafted 3rd overall. So they're filled with guys that were projected really high. You know, with Kyrie Irving, look, the reality is, yes, last year, early in his NBA career, maybe without having the utmost respect to the teammates and the guys around him, he appeared to be a selfish player at times and didn't get along and didn't take that young nucleus to the heights that they were hoping to. But when you insert LeBron James in the mixture, all of a sudden there's a respect factor. He's going to be willing to modify his game. He's going to want to be more like Chris Paul and be a facilitator and a capable scorer than being a guy that's just trying, get numbers and losing night in, night out. So I wouldn't write off Kyrie Irving as being a guy that can't win in this league. I think he can, and he'll adjust, respecting the ego of a LeBron James. I do think your point, glue guys that understand how to play, guys that are willing to submerge their ego and get a rebound and set a screen instead of the glory of the box score, ultimately are the guys that help you win championships. We saw this at San Antonio. We saw guys willing to, if you will, to even sacrifice minutes and share in order for other guys to be able to, it was the sum of the parts that made it work there. Kevin Love certainly is a terrific player and will be very welcomed in Cleveland. Should they be willing to package, is Minnesota willing to accept an Anthony Bennett, a number one, and a Deion Waiters? If so, you're going to see Kevin Love go to Cleveland. If not, they're not going to give Wiggins up. So, or I doubt that they're going to give Andrew Wiggins up. So now you're gonna see if they wait and Kevin Love doesn't want to play in Minnesota, he'll have his opportunities.
I just see Kevin Love. He, of course, his body has changed for the better, but I just salivate when I think of what he did at UCLA and Minnesota he hadn't done. Is the tremendous ability to grab the rebound and turn quickly, a la Wes Unseld, and just throw that touchdown pass off the rebound to LeBron James streaking down the court. I just have that vision of that.
He's the best outlet passer we've had in basketball in a long time, like a Wes Unseld. Unbelievable how outlet passer, and just ferocious. A ferocious competitor on the boards. He's expanded his offensive game. I mean, Kevin Love's the real deal. He may be the best forward, the best power forward in the game right now, compared to like an aging Tim Duncan and so on. Might be the best power forward in the game. A lot of teams are crossroads. I mean, we see this like now. They're buyers and sellers, and teams that are trying to clear money and teams that are trying to get players, and that's sort of what makes this free agency puzzle so compelling. Who are the buyers and who are the sellers? And you saw Phoenix offer tender Isaiah Thomas, a pretty what looks like going to be a sign and trade to get him another piece. Phoenix, a young team that's got a lot of money. So many things. You saw Chris Bosh getting a max deal to go back to Miami after being rumored to go to Houston for a near max deal. So it's just so much intrigue. But the one thing that is that this is it's a new ball game in the East, and it won't be you've got a good Cleveland, you've got Chicago trying to add a piece, you've got a lot of things going on. This is a new ball game.
Where do you think Melo ends up? You talk about that new ball game in the East. Is he going to roll back to New York when it's all said and done?
In my heart of hearts, I think Carmelo Anthony is leaving New York. I have no inside information. I just think that I could see Carmelo after this LeBron announcement going to the Chicago Bulls and now saying, okay, we're going to match up toe-to-toe personnel with Cleveland and maybe even be the team to beat in the East.
That would be huge. That would be huge. And now you mentioned Bosh going back to Miami. They're looking to re-up with Wade. What direction do you go in if you're Pat Riley right now?
Well, I think you got to be smart. One thing with the NBA is you can't make these expensive mistakes. You see what these guys are signing for, and you see the good teams, or let's put it the other way. The bad teams never have cap flexibility. They're always like the Knicks and teams like that, never have the ability to go and land anybody. They're always struggling with their cap. So of signing, when you lock yourself into guys for $8 million, $12 million, of guys of mid-level talent, it ruins a franchise. So the best thing you can do is, outside of you guys that are horses, is wait for the right guy that fits your situation. Don't lose out on a guy and then spend a lot of money on a guy that doesn't work or doesn't fit. And you see a lot of names going for a lot of money around the league, and I think that's sort of chasing fool's gold. After you miss out on a player, then you're spending money the wrong sort of way.
Lee, can we hold you real quick? A quick timeout. Wanted to ask you a college basketball question on the other side. Get your take on what's happening down at the College of Charleston with Doug Wojcik and how this could potentially play out down there with the heat that he's taking. More with Lee Klein coming up on the other side.
Bundle starting at $79.99 a month. Upgrade to a qualifying package to get a free Dell
Also,
cable.
The world's best chicken. Howdy.
we've been a part of.
So you was gonna run into him. Yeah, what's up, man? Sammy Walker's right here. You getting that farm working academic with, man. So language all day, baby. This is a Randy the parking guy. He's a good dude. Can talk though. He's a good dude though. Alright, love you too, man. One of the things that Coach expresses to us and stresses to us is that, you know, you're not just an athlete, but you're a Clemson representative. Now we about to go visit Marie and Vickery. How she is, yeah. So it's the academic success, and as they like to call it. You hate this place when you first get here, honestly. Like you dread it. After a while, you start to embrace it, you start to love it. Because homework, if it doesn't get done here, it won't get done. So it might sit you in the corner, like you gotta get this done. They force it upon you, but you'll get it done at some point.
All right, guys, here we go. Stand by.
Back with Lee Klein. And Lee, I wanted to get your take on the situation at the College of Charleston. I don't know how closely you've been following this story with Doug Wojcik and the report that came out with alleged verbal abuse towards his players and staff members. Pretty ugly down there in Charleston. He's already been suspended without pay next month, but with this going public, there's speculation that he could be done at the College of Charleston. What is your opinion on this whole ordeal?
Well, we're in a different era. I mean, it's first and foremost, basketball has changed in the 60s and 70s, and a lot of guys during that era, it was the I'm going to break you down and rebuild you mentality. That's Bob Knight used it very successfully. Coach K also was a guy that a lot of people would say was, really, if you will, would pick a couple of players and really try to break them down and rebuild them. And now you're in an era in which you've got to inspire your players and you got to win them over, and the negativity is being taken out of basketball. We see it on the pro level as well. So, Coach Wojcik, without knowing specifically all that went along, we've seen now this, if you will, bullying, verbal abuse come up a few times with coaches. It happened last year. There was talk of it in the Horizon League. I want to say it was Wisconsin Green Bay. Ended up the coach, they kept the coach. They had a good year, and the players came back and responded in favor of the coach. We also saw on the women's side, women's coach, I want to say it was Kathy Greenberg. Mm-hmm. She was removed. Same thing. For Doug Wojcik, the unfortunate thing becomes that right now, they need to get players. They need to be doing things, and he's not able to help them. So it looks like, the College of Charleston, Bobby Cremins, John Crest, these guys, not only were they great, really successful, but they were, if you will, real gentlemen, and players loved and endeared them. And Wojcik, comes from a different background, military background, really, it's just a different mindset. And for whatever reason, I'll say this: if College of Charleston, it's only been now 2 years, you might as well, in this point, unless you gotta either make a quick decision and remove the guy, or give the guy the year to go to work and assess it. What you can't do is sort of hang in purgatory, because that just further destroys your program and just puts you back that much further. I believe they're in a new league this year as well.
Yeah, the CAA.
Is that correct?
Right, yeah, last year was their first year in the CAA.
Right, so now they're in a new league. The last thing they can really afford is to just go in purgatory and end up on the basement. So I don't have all the facts. I do think this, that the college needs to step up and make a quick decision one way or the other. Either give them the year under evaluation or remove them now and let the program move forward with whoever they, give whether it be an assistant or bring somebody else in, let the program move forward.
Lee, we appreciate it. Great insight as always. Lee Klein joining us. Welcome back to Sports Talk here on South Carolina Radio Network. Kevin McCrary, the Professor Tom Hayes with you. We will connect with Monty Dutton for our full Monty report inside NASCAR coming up momentarily. Also, we were just rolling on some Freddie Gonzalez, his post-game comments after a Braves loss to the Cubs, 5-4 the final. The Cubs scoring in the bottom of the ninth inning to win that game. So we'll hear from Freddie G as Atlanta trying to get any kind of semblance of momentum going into the All-Star break right now. They are now a half game behind the Nationals after that loss this afternoon, and the Nationals open a series in Philly. Actually, they're playing in Philly right now, so they'll have to scoreboard watch in that one. But we'll talk more baseball. We have recruiting coming up as well. Lots of recruiting to update here in just a few minutes. But let's do our full Monty segment with Monty Dutton joining us now. We just lost Monty. All right. We're going to call Monty back because I want to get Monty's opinions on some of the things that have been happening around NASCAR, including the Racing Team Alliance, which they say is not a union, despite the fact that it's a bunch of teams collaborating to try to make things better. I liked Monty's take on this, so we'll let him talk more about that and also his thoughts on the robust discussion for changes in NASCAR.
Well, you know, again, you got kids at home, K-Mac. First thing you know is who did it when the first one says, I didn't do it. It wasn't me. Well, why do you have to say it's not a union?
Let's join now. We have Monty. We have him back. Okay, Monty, sorry about that. We lost you there for a second. I'm glad you're with us. Yeah, we were talking about this RTA, and I loved your tweet earlier this week when you said essentially it just means that they're going to get to use the same Sam's Club card and get a discount at the Golden Corral. Is that all there is to this RTA?
Well, as you probably realize, my tweet was sarcastic.
Yes.
I actually think that's what back when I was at the track every week, I used to call Friday Liar's Day. The reason is that on Friday, the drivers all come in with their talking points, and they say that they love this track because you can pass so easily and run 3 or 4 wide. And then when Sunday rolls around, they get out of their cars and they say, you just can't pass anybody at this place. And so that's normally true, but I knew that they would have moved up to DEFCON 4 this week and that it would be a vintage thing because the people who are really caught in the middle here, this is I think it's funny that they call this a union. Who ever heard of a union of management, of owners? The people who are caught in the middle are the drivers who are beholden to both NASCAR and the owners. And so they're on kind of the hot seat, and stock car racers are traditionally much more compliant than athletes in other sports, which is why they don't have any representation. And so, what I think another factor that comes into play is the spin doctrine that always goes on. It goes on in every sport, but it certainly is extensive in NASCAR. And everybody and the spin comes back to haunt you. Because a year ago, about this time a year ago, you had a bunch of people who were explaining away declining attendance, where people were confidentially telling reporters that the TV money was so great that the attendance was just getting to where it was negligible, and that was just all gravy. That was a way to rationalize the way that their crowds were declining. Well, somewhere along the line, when people say that, somebody else says, what? All this TV money? It made the owners think, well, maybe we need a bigger share of that. And so I think that has a little bit of responsibility for this developing. So, it's kind of like everybody, I have an old rule, one of my favorite sports writers' slogans is that the truth is seldom more evident than when being vehemently denied. And so when everybody sits there and they have a big, the first hint, which is now in hindsight, that something was going on was that NASCAR always has something of a cruise on a yacht for their top owners right before the summertime race at Daytona. Well, it was abruptly canceled this year. and so that's where the first that something idea something was amiss. And so, it's one of those things where now everybody's saying, the people there, they're saying, oh, this is just about working together and we can get better deals on insurance and things like that. But if everybody was really happy and if there weren't some perceived threat, then the level of tension would not be this high. So I think it's difficult, particularly from this vantage point, to tell you what's really happening, but it's not hard to tell that something is happening.
Another issue, I guess, Monty, is we've been hearing these rumblings about robust schedule changes in NASCAR coming. What is your take on that? Are we going to see some tracks losing some races? Are we going to shift some of the races to more important dates to maybe older tracks? What do you see?
Well, what I think is that in many ways NASCAR often operates by trial balloon. They throw something out, like the new chase format this year, and for a while they don't announce it. They just allow us how they're considering it, and they look at how the reaction is to that. So NASCAR kind of like sort of nudges people in the direction they want to go so that their dictatorial tendencies appear less overt. And so I think that is the case here. And I think, for instance, Fox reported, I think that actually Chris Myers said something about he'd heard that Darlington was going to get the second race of the season, which Darlington gets batted around like they're being, that track's like they're playing air hockey with it. Labor Day, well, they moved it off Labor Day and they gave it the worst date possible on Mother's Day, and they pulled that off, had great crowds. And then they moved, somebody else wanted Mother's Day, so they moved Kansas there, and Darlington got another date. And if they move them back to that early when it's cold, it's just like, what can we possibly do to run this track out of business? Of course, which is odd since the people that run NASCAR are the people that run ISC, and NASCAR is owned by that. But I think that I may be a little bit paranoid as a South Carolinian who has gone to Darlington all his life. But it just does seem kind of ridiculous. Now, there's one thing where it hits us locally.
Yeah, we were talking with Chip Weil earlier this week, and he said he's been given no indication that their date's going to move, and he said the metrics for Darlington, his words. Now, granted, his job is to promote the track, but he said they're on the uptick in NASCAR's eyes, not the downtick.
By the way, the other thing I want to point in there is that I like the word robust a lot better when they use it to describe German beer. That's one of those cliches that everybody's using. It's one of those cliches that everybody is sort of absconded with, and it's become like one of those words that businessmen all of a sudden love to use when it's become a cliche in itself.
Yes, it has. Well, great stuff as always, Monty. We appreciate it. We appreciate your input and your knowledge, and hopefully they won't touch Darlington. The day Darlington loses its race, NASCAR will lose a lot of fans forever. Me being one of them.
It's my favorite place. But then it carries with it the magic that comes when you go to places when you're a kid. Just like if you went to Death Valley at Clemson back in the old days, or you went to your local high school or whatever. It had carries sentimental attachment, and so it's my favorite track, and I am proud to say that I am terribly biased.
Yes, yeah, it's got that Wrigley Field feel to it when you walk in there for the first time.
I always feel that if you rip off the underpinnings of your history, suddenly the whole house comes tumbling down.
Our full Monty report with Monty Dutton. We've got recruiting coming up on the other side. Also a little bit of Freddie Gonzalez after the Braves loss just about an hour ago to the Chicago Cubs in Chi-Town. All that and more coming up on Sports Talk.
It's got to be the worst interview to give on a sports scale whenever you just get done with. It's going to be the worst interview to give, like on a sports scale, is like whenever you're doing like a post game real fast, like right after a track athlete comes off from running, a 400 meters or something. They stick a mic in your face and you can barely even breathe, much less talk. I thought that was great.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, jeez. Gatorade. I'm trying to remain living here, lady. Can you give me 30 minutes?
He had a pretty good night. He had a pretty good night or good afternoon. He had a pretty good night or good afternoon. He had a pretty good night or good afternoon with a couple doubles there, left center gap, and we kept battling back. We had some opportunities to put big numbers up a couple times. Couple doubles there, left center gap, and we kept battling back. We had some opportunities to put big numbers up a couple times, and went to bat really well. One of those things with him.
Whether it's BJ or Schaefer today, you happy with the production you're getting from your leadoff man lately?
Absolutely, base. Still good. I'm happy with those guys up at the top of the order there. Now we got to get some. Now we can get keep the line moving, and we will.
This is a couple times we've seen Bethencourt in late.
All right, stand by.
Wofford's own William McGirt on top of the leaderboard at the John Deere Classic, 12 under par, 5 under on his round today, 12 under for the tournament. He's actually tied with Zach Johnson atop the leaderboard. And a couple of other local players made the cut. Kyle Stanley and Jonathan Bird shot a combined 9 under par today, according to Tim Beret, and they will be playing through the weekend at the John Deere Classic. Recruiting right around the corner. First, a few comments from Freddie Gonzalez following the Braves' loss against the Chicago Cubs. The Cubbies score a run in the bottom of the ninth to win it 5-4.
Back. We had some opportunities to put big numbers up a couple times, and that didn't happen. So, sometimes you end up in a situation like we did there in the ninth inning.
Arrieta's been pretty tough this season, especially the last handful of starts.
He's been that's pretty good stuff coming out of that arm. Good sinker, good movement. Pretty good curveball too, and we had him a couple times again, and he made some pitches and got out of it.
Shea Simmons has been almost perfect every time he put him in there. Had one blip there with 4 balls.
Yeah, and as a young man, a young kid, so that's probably the first time you ever seen him. I haven't seen him do that, but he came back and then got himself back and straightened out and gave us a couple, got out of that inning, and then he gave us the next inning. Yeah, when they pinch hit Alter for the lefty, he felt pretty good. That's right up his alley, facing left-handed hitters. And but you know what? Maybe it's just I wouldn't expect it to walk. He's been so dominant, so good. So it's one of those things with him.
Whether it's BJ or Schaefer today, you happy with the production you're getting from your leadoff man lately?
Absolutely. Schaefer had a great day. He stole 3 bags, got on base, an error, base on ball, got on base, stole some bases, played nice defense, and BJ's been doing that in the leadoff spot. So that's those are all good. I'm happy with those guys up at the top of the order there. Now we got to get some. Now we can get keep the line moving, and we will.
All right, from Freddie Gonzalez to recruiting, beginning with the commitment last night from running back A.J. Turner out of Centerville, Virginia to USC, picked the Gamecocks over Virginia, Ohio State, Michigan State, and Clemson. Made that announcement on ESPNU from the opening in Oregon. He is the 22nd commitment for the Gamecocks' 2015 class, the first running back commitment. Tennessee, LSU, and Clemson are the top 3 in order for defensive end Rasul Clemens, 6'6", 200, out of South Aiken. He'll visit Tennessee soon. Plans to visit Clemson sometime after he returns from Knox Vegas. When asked if he would commit to Tennessee while on that visit, he said, "I don't know yet." 5-star defensive end Byron Coward answered Oregon, LSU, Clemson, Florida on ESPNU as the schools that are standing out to him right now. Moving on to athlete Cody Montgomery, 6'4", 195, out of Louisville. He's drawn strong interest from Harvard, Yale, Citadel, Charleston Southern, and Gardner-Webb, according to his coach, William Mitchell. USC, Clemson, and NC State have been checking in on him this spring. Did so over the spring, I should say. Furman has also shown some interest in Montgomery, who is a quarterback and outside linebacker. USC signee Dexter Weidman of Saluda should have his freshman eligibility status for the season determined by the end of next week, as Coach said today. Stuart Young said, I would say that I don't know. It's still up in the air. We'll know something by the middle or end of next week. Young said, should Weidman not qualify, all efforts will be made to get him into a prep school so he can get into USC in January. Weidman is one of 4 Gamecock signees whose qualifying status remains up in the air. The others are defensive back Wesley Green, defensive back Chris Lamons, and defensive back Darren Smalls. 3 other signees are definite non-qualifiers, defensive end Dante Sawyer, a tight end Kalen Ritchie, and Justin Thomas. They all failed to qualify. Another signee, fullback Joe Blue of Dillon, did not enroll for summer school sessions, but as Coach Jackie Hayes said, he was informed today that Blue has been officially ruled as a qualifier. So Joe Blue will enroll July 31st, assuming he's accepted by the university, which, of course, is the case for all recruits attempting to qualify. 2016 wide receiver Derek Nelson out of Fort Lauderdale plans to announce a commitment tomorrow at a rivals camp in Jacksonville. His offers include Clemson, Florida State, Miami, Louisville, Cincinnati, Central Florida, Southern Cal, and Wisconsin. He said he actually made his mind up on June 24th. He's visited Miami and Auburn twice and Tennessee once in the past few months. Clemson offered in January. 2016 quarterback Avery McCall of Dillon will attend camp at Florida State Wednesday of next week, and the Seminoles may step up with an offer at that time. He already has offers from Clemson, USC, LSU, North Carolina, Tennessee, Ohio State, and NC State. Athlete Jason Lewis of Virginia Beach, Virginia, has a top 5 that he's going to release tomorrow. We'll tell you more about him and a basketball note as well before we wrap things up. right, we left with Jason Lewis of Virginia Beach getting set to announce his top 5 tomorrow. Clemson is one of his offers, and he's been interested in the Tigers. Some of his other offers are Florida, Florida State, Miami, Georgia, Georgia Tech, Arizona State, Oregon, LSU, Penn State, and Wisconsin. A basketball note, Clemson coach Brad Brownell was in Lithonia, Georgia. You can always tell when it's the end of the show on a Friday. I just can't. My brain checks
Lithonia.
out at 7:45. Yeah, Lithonia, Georgia. Scouting 6'5" Tevin Mack out of Dreer at an AAU summer tournament. So that is recruiting. If you want more on these stories, go to our website, sportstalksc.com. Recruiting updated throughout the day, throughout the night, the weekends, holidays. It does not matter. It is always updated there at sportstalksc.com. All right, we are continuing to keep an eye on this story involving Auburn quarterback Nick Marshall. He was cited for possession of marijuana this afternoon. Was not arrested, was just cited. It was less than 1 ounce of marijuana, according to the report. So there was no arrest made there. Not sure if it was during a traffic stop or how this came up, but Nick Marshall will have to face the music at Auburn. And some people are talking about Auburn's drug policy and, the second offense, it's 6 games. But keep in mind, the drug policy usually involves failing a drug test. It doesn't usually necessarily, doesn't always mean that if you get caught with it in your car or get charged with possession of it, that it's going to fall under that umbrella. A lot of times you see that as, you fail a drug test the first time you test positive for marijuana. It's 2 games, second this. So we don't know. Now, granted, logic would indicate if the guy has less than an ounce of marijuana, he was planning on smoking it or had smoked it. So who knows? But certainly not the kind of crime blotter story you like if you're a college football coach. So Gus Malzahn not having a good Friday night.
And I will say that I will tell people that's why, and this is a good idea to do this anyway, because you don't know what kind of contraband is floating around. That's why it's always good, people, when you rent a car, go through it before you leave the lot, in case somebody else left something in there, and you happen to be in that car and they look at it.
Less than an ounce.
Yeah.
He was caught with. All right, that's going to do it. We will have a big week on Sports Talk next week. Your football fix is finally going to be here. Kornblut back from vacation. We'll be at SEC Media Days. Also next week, Dabo Sweeney's golf tournament. So big week planned for you on Sports Talk next week. Pro, enjoyed it as always.
Oh, yes. I'm just waiting for my telephone call after Jeremy Lin knows where he's going. Maybe I'll get a call about midnight tonight.
I'm waiting for mine to coach the Lakers next year. I'm going to coach them into a terrible finish and into a top 5 pick in next year's NBA draft. I can handle that. I'll do it cheap. Pope, we appreciate your help as well. Have a great weekend, everyone. We'll see you same time, same place, Monday night.